like a heartbeat, the sound is alive, echoing loud where freedom thrives. Beat the drums, let the freedom ring. Feel the pulse like a roaring train. Shake the ground with the power we bring. Raise your voice, let the freedom sing. The skies open wide with the thunder and roar, a cadence of hope we can't ignore. Hands in the air, we march to the beat. Together we rise, no fear, no retreat. Beat the drums, let the freedom ring. Feel the pulse like a roaring train. Shake the ground with the power we bring. Raise your voice, let the freedom sing. Each strike is a spark, a flame in the night, lighting the path to what's just and right. The rhythm unites us, it tears down the walls, a sound that reminds us we've answered the call. Beat the drums, let the freedom ring. Raise your voice, let the freedom sing. Each strike is a spark, a flame in the night, lighting the path to what's just and right. The rhythm unites us, it tears down the walls, a sound that reminds us we've answered the call. Beat the drums, let the freedom ring. Feel the pulse like a roaring train. Shake the ground with the power we bring. Raise your voice, let the freedom sing. The skies open wide with the thunder and roar, a cadence of hope we can't ignore. Hands in the air, we march to the beat. Together we rise, no fear, no retreat. Beat the drums, let the freedom ring. Feel the pulse like a roaring train. Shake the ground with the power we bring. Raise your voice, let the freedom sing. Each strike is a spark, a flame in the night, lighting the path to what's just and right. The rhythm unites us, it tears down the walls, a sound that reminds us we've answered the call. Beat the drums, let the freedom ring. Feel the pulse like a roaring train. Shake the ground with the power we bring. Raise your voice, let the freedom sing.
trenches, I got my defenses up.
I load on my weapons, yeah, I'm aiming at everyone. Ain't no stars in Hollywood, every night is dark as hell. Demons always on the prowl, looking for a soul to sell. But I'm a soldier, yeah, bullets from my shoulders strap. If I make it out, I'm never going back. Battle from my heart like, ooh, it's me against the dark side. I'm paying such a high price, living in the limelight. It's a war, yeah, but I'll fight for every inch I die before I quit. Like, ooh, it's a war, yeah, but I'll fight for every inch I die before I quit. Like, ooh, it's a war, it's a war, yeah. I'm in the trenches, I got my defenses up. I load on my weapons, yeah, I'm aiming at everyone. Ain't no stars in Hollywood, every night is dark as hell. Demons always on the prowl, looking for a soul to sell. But I'm a soldier, yeah, bullets from my shoulders strap. If I make it out, I'm never going back. Battle from my heart like, ooh, it's me against the dark side. I'm paying such a high price, living in the limelight. It's a war, yeah, but I'll fight for every inch I die before I quit. Like, ooh, it's a war, yeah, but I'll fight for every inch I die before I quit. Like, ooh, it's a war, it's a war, yeah. Fight for every inch I die before I quit. Like, ooh, it's a war, it's a war, it's a war, yeah, yeah.
They creep along the street, footsteps echoing a sinister beat. Moonlight casting eerie ghostly light, whispers calling in the dead of night. Haunted alleys where the lost souls roam, creaking doors in an abandoned home, faces hidden in the misty glow, secrets buried deep beneath the tomb. Dancing with the ghosts like no one's seen, in the twilight of our haunted dreams. Darkness wrapping like a velvet shroud, hear the dark. Silent hunters prowling through the park. Tangled visions in a twisted rhyme. Lost in shadows of another time. Feel the pulse of fear, it's pounding strong. Join the dance, you cannot right the wrong. Close your eyes and let the night disguise all the truths that lie behind the lies. Dancing with the ghosts like no one's seen, in the twilight of our haunted dreams. Darkness wrapping like a velvet shroud. Hear the echoes calling from the crowd. Eyes like embers glowing in the dark. Silent hunters prowling through the park. Tangled visions in a twisted rhyme. Lost in shadows of another time. Feel the pulse of fear, it's pounding strong. Join the dance, you cannot right the wrong. Close your eyes and let the night disguise all the truths that lie behind the lies. Dancing with the ghosts like no one's seen, in the twilight of our haunted dreams. Darkness wrapping like a velvet shroud. Hear the echoes calling from the crowd. Eyes like embers glowing in the dark. Silent hunters prowling through the park. Tangled visions in a twisted rhyme. Lost in shadows of another time. Feel the pulse of fear, it's pounding strong. Join the dance, you cannot right the wrong. Close your eyes and let the night disguise all the truths that lie behind the lies. Dancing with the ghosts like no one's seen, in the twilight of our haunted dreams. Darkness wrapping like a velvet shroud. Hear the echoes calling from the crowd. Eyes like embers glowing in the dark. Silent hunters prowling through the park. Tangled visions in a twisted rhyme. Lost in shadows of another time. Feel the pulse of fear, it's pounding strong. Join the dance, you cannot right the wrong. Close your eyes and let the night disguise all the truths that lie behind the lies. Dancing with the ghosts like no one's seen, in the twilight of our haunted dreams. Darkness wrapping like a velvet shroud. Hear the echoes calling from the crowd. Stråken högt mot söndagssolens kula. Då blev det fart på Hårga-folket. Då glömde du och hela världen. Dansen gick på äng och backar, högst upp på Hårga och sen stopp. Man slet ut på skor och klackar, aldrig fick någon på dansen stopp. Varifrån kommer du som spelar? Säg, vem har lärt dig detta spel, det vilda galna? Stannar du inte, brister hjärtat, och gubben var det han var på. morgon kommer du som spelar. Säg, vem har lärt dig detta spel, det vilda galna? Stannar du inte, brister hjärtat, och Gud bevare han var hård. Klockorna hade ringt i dalen, och där gick far och mor och bror till sockenkyrkan. Var kan du Hårgas ungdom vara? Och herregud, och dansare. Dansen gick till Hårgalåten, högt upp på Hårgaåsens topp. Man har nu inte långt till gråten, dansar sönder både själ och kropp. Hejda din stråkespelman innan vi dansar liv och själ och alla ben i kroppen. Nej, inte slutar han sin dans förrän allesammans faller döda. Vansen gick till Hårgalåten, högt upp på Hårgaåsens topp. Man har nu inte långt till gråten, dansar nu sönder både själ och kropp. Hejda din stråkespelman innan vi dansar liv och själ och äl och alla ben i kroppen. Nej, inte slutar han sin dans förrän allesammans faller döda. Hejda din stråkespelman innan vi dansar liv och själ och alla ben i kroppen. Nej, inte slutar han sin dans förrän nu ute på dansar ännu kropp. Hejda din stråkespelman innan vi dansar liv och själ och alla ben ur kroppen. Nej, inte slutar han sin dans förrän allesammans faller döda. rise up, hurry, we are unstoppable. Dark night, all ground, orders are loud. No room for doubt, carry it out. Dark night, cold ground, orders barked loud. No room for doubt, carry it out. Shadows blend, friend or foe, they say. One less loose end. Follow orders, pave the way. Hard steel, gotta go through. One less loose end, take aim and shoot. Darkness around, lost the truth. One less loose end, soldiers root. Eyes locked, mocked mind. Tears won't fall. Hands tremble, slide, duty above all. Dark night, cold ground, orders barked loud. No room for doubt, carry it out. Shadows blend, friend or foe, they say. One less loose end. Follow orders, pave the way. Hard steel, gotta go through. One less loose end, take aim and shoot. Darkness around, lost the truth. One less loose end, soldiers root. Eyes locked, mocked mind. Tears won't fall. Hands tremble, slide, duty above all. Heart steel, gotta go through. One less loose end to hit and shoot. Take aim and shoot. Take aim and shoot. Darkness around, lost the truth. One less loose end, soldiers root. One less loose end, soldiers root. Memory haunts, silent screams. Could it change, breaking seams? One less loose end, no light seen. Just a soldier in a machine. Hard steel, gotta go through. One less loose end, take aim and shoot. Darkness around, lost the truth. One less loose end, soldiers root. Soldiers root. Memory haunts, silent screams. Could it change, breaking scenes? One less loose end, no light seen. Just a soldier in the machine. Memory haunts, silent screams. Could it change, breaking seams? One less loose end, no light seen. Just a soldier in the machine. the shadows deep and cold. Heart of darkness made of gold. Whispered spells that bind the night, summoning forgotten light. Ancient tones with twisted grace bring her back from dark embrace. Fighting death with every breath, life and love defying death. I will rise against the dark, break the chains and leave my mark. For you, my love, I'll sacrifice. Battle gods and pay the price. Minions rise with vengeful glee, but they cannot conquer me. Through the pain I bear the cost, I'll reclaim all that we've lost. Rage of gods and shadows fall, yet I heed my love's fate call. From the graves who come once more, breaking through death's iron door. Blood and bone and soul entwined, in the blackest night we'll find pathways back to our own land. Hand in ghostly hand we'll stand. I will rise against the dark, break the chains and leave my mark. For you, my love, I'll sacrifice. Battle gods and pay the price. Battle gods and pay the price. The price against the dark. Break the chains and leave my mark. For you, my love, I'll sacrifice. Battle gods and pay the price. Minions rise with vengeful glee, but they cannot conquer me. Through the pain I bear the cost, I'll reclaim all that we've lost. Rage of gods and shadows fall, yet I heed my love's fate call. From the graves who come once more, breaking through death's iron door. Blood and bone and soul entwined, in the blackest night we'll find pathways back to our own land. Hand in ghostly hand we'll stand. I will rise against the dark, break the chains and leave my mark. For you, my love, I'll sacrifice. Battle gods and pay the price. Battle gods and pay the price. The price against the dark. Break the chains and leave my mark. For you, my love, I'll sacrifice. Battle gods and pay the price. Minions rise with vengeful glee, but they cannot conquer me. Through the pain I bear the cost, I'll reclaim all that we've lost. Born in shadows night, scales clean, sharp warrior's might. Quiet brain in serpent skin, rage within grows fierce again. Trident claim the throne. Lizard born in shadows night. Scales gleam, sharp warrior's might. Quiet brain in serpent skin. Rage within grows fierce again. Fangs out, piercing darkness deep. Hands like claws in silence creep. Tiny frame, no more to braves. Barbarian wrath makes the night quake. Raging monster growing, darling tall. Climbing mountains, heed the call. Fearsome beast skin like two blades. Lizard trident claim the throne. Lizard born in shadows night. Scales gleam, sharp warrior's might. Quiet brain in serpent skin. Rage within grows fierce again. Fangs out, piercing darkness deep. Hands like claws in silence creep. Tiny frame, no more to braves. Barbarian wrath makes the night quake. Raging monster growing, darling tall. Climbing mountains, heed the call. Fearsome beast skin like two blades. Lizard trident claim the throne. Eyes glow red with primal fire. Every scream a deadly choir. Blood of ancients running wild. Savage hearts, brilliant mind. Hear the roar of shifting bones. Armored hide and broken thrones. Mind and might in savage dance. Stalk the night with deadly trance. Monster growing tall. Climbing mountains, heed the call. Fearsome beast, skin like stone. Lizard titan, claim the throne. 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 Road, road, yeah. Lizard titan, claim the throne. softly play. Dreams of night just fade away. Shadows fall beyond the light. Stars will keep their secrets tight. Eyes wide open, face the day. Hope and dreams come out to play. Making moments feel the glow. Morning sings in golden flow. Now before dawn, come find your ray. Now before dawn, start a new day. Now before dawn, not before dawn, come find a ray. Not before dawn, start a new day. Not before dawn, we'll find our way. Morning comes, we won't delay. We won't delay. Moments pass, but here we stay. Hold my heart in this array. Rise and shine, our spirits say. Night is gone, we face the day. Birds are calling, hear their song. Time to move where we belong. Life will blossom, paths will blend. Journey starts where shadows end. Not before dawn, come find your ray. Not before dawn, start a new day. Not before dawn, not before dawn, come find a ray. Not before dawn, start a new day. Not before dawn, we'll find our way. Morning comes, we won't delay. We won't delay. Moments pass, but here we stay. Hold my heart in this array. Rise and shine, our spirits say. Night is gone, we face the day. Birds are calling, hear their song. Time to move where we belong. Life will blossom, paths will blend. Journey starts where shadows end. Not before dawn, come find your ray. Not before dawn, start a new day. Not before dawn, not before dawn, come find a ray. Not before dawn, start a new day. Not before dawn, we'll find our way. Morning comes, we won't delay. We won't delay. Moments pass, but here we stay. Hold my heart in this array. Rise and shine, our spirits say. Night is gone, we face the day. Birds are calling, hear their song. Time to move where we belong. Life will blossom, paths will blend. Journey starts where shadows end. Not before dawn, come find your ray. Not before dawn, start a new day. Not before dawn, not before dawn, come find a ray. Not before dawn, start a new day. Not before dawn, we'll find our way. Morning comes, we won't delay. We won't delay. But here we stay. Hold my heart in this array. Rise and shine, our spirits say. Night is gone, we face the day. We won't delay. We won't delay. We won't delay. The bells toll out a mournful cry. cry. Shadows fall where hope should lie. The air is thick with fear and dread. A city's heart is nearly dead. Tainted grain, tainted tears, no escape from haunting fears. Blades will sing as lives will fade. To cleanse the curse, the price is paid. The prince walks forth, his path is grim. The light dims softly around him. He wields resolve, his soul aflame. Yet whispers call his righteous name. The streets run red with sacrifice. Each strike a cost, each life a price. The plague it spreads like creeping vines, and justice treads on fragile lines. Tainted rain, tainted tears, no escape from haunting fears. Blades will sing as lives will fade. To cleanse the curse, the price is paid. The city's wails rise to the sky, a testament to those who die. Yet in his eyes a storm does brew. Does he save them? Tainted tears, no escape from haunting fears. Blades will sing as lives will fade. To cleanse the curse, the price is paid. The prince walks forth, his path is grim. The light dims softly around him. He wields resolve, his soul aflame. Yet whispers call his righteous name. The streets run red with sacrifice. Each strike a cost, each life a price. The plague it spreads like creeping vines, and justice treads on fragile lines. Tainted rain, tainted tears, no escape from haunting fears. Blades will sing as lives will fade. To cleanse the curse, the price is paid. The city's wails rise to the sky, a testament to those who die. Yet in his eyes a storm does brew. Does he save them or fall through? The city's wails rise to the sky, a testament to those who die. Yet in his eyes a storm does brew. Does he save them or fall through? The city's wails rise to the sky, a testament to those who die. Yet in his eyes a storm does brew. Does he save them or fall through? The city's wails rise to the sky, a testament to those who die. Yet in his eyes a storm does brew. Does he save them or fall through?